still sensitive. I mean, I was talking to a lawyer just 2 weeks ago we were talking about hair, black hair.
Yes.
It's always a conversation.
Yeah.
But she said to me, Thenji, I'm not confident yet to, wear braids yet. I'm not confident to, you can do it because you've made partner, but I'm not yet. Yeah. And I'm just like, well, are we still there where there's still sensitivities around how you wear your hair?
Let's talk DXB. Real conversations by real people. Thenji, thank you. A big thank you, because an employment partner, I know how busy that you must be. So I'm very grateful. I'm grateful for anyone. I say this every episode. Anyone that gives me their time, I'm very, very grateful for you doing that. So thank you.
Really excited to be here. So thank you for inviting me.
Conversation is going to be so valuable for me and many, because you hear of so many different dynamics when it comes to employment law, people's rights. But I always ask my guests to tell me more about them, because a lot of the time I'm still quite new to, meeting them. So tell me more about you.
Well, I've been in the UAE for 12 years, so a long time. And it's been a really interesting time, certainly as a lawyer. Before that, I was in the UK. Okay. Before that, I was in South Africa. Before that, I was in Zimbabwe. So, I've lived in many different countries. And I do feel that coming to the UAE is a great fit because there is that kind of real expat international feel, which I really kind of identify with.
Fantastic.
Myself. Yeah.
And so I can see that you're doing great things in Dubai, obviously.
Thank you.
It seems like you're really enjoying being here and all that you're doing. I wanted to touch on some common questions, probably that a lot of people will have. I'm sure you faced as well, and you're seeing. What are you seeing when it comes to diversity in law? Obviously, you've been doing within the legal industry for a number of years. What are your thoughts on it?
Wow. I don't know whether you saw the report that came out in the UK last year.
I do think so.
There was a report last year that came out, I think it was called the Black Study or something. It came out and it was looking at law firms specifically in the UK. And I think it was 1% of partners were coming from black backgrounds.
1%? This was last year, the report?
Last year, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know it was that low.
It's really low. And I remember thinking, so we need to start making steps to change that narrative. But I remember what it was like being in the UK, coming out of university and looking at law firms, going on their websites, looking at their partners or senior lawyers, and no one looks like me, right? Yeah. So that's the reality of my own experience. But things are changing. I think now D&I, certainly from Gately Legal, it's on the agenda.
Fantastic.
We're very much about diversity and inclusion and making sure that there are real, genuine, equal opportunities. And of course, I'm an example of that. But and not tokenism, not just ticking the box.
This literally came to my mind.
Because that's what the question is. That, so are we just going to, fill the spot? No, not necessarily, but still making sure that there are opportunities for everyone to have that opportunity. Representation is really so important, and I see it because of the messages that I get from, on LinkedIn especially, people, a girl from Kenya will send me a message, I'm following your story, I'm really inspired.
Amazing.
And then, if you're inspiring just one African girl, then you know that your job is done, right?
100%,
I think things are changing. I think there's more schemes in place, but it's still difficult, It's still very, very competitive, and there's still a lot of work to be done. Is there discrimination in the workplace? Absolutely, it still exists. So, now that the policies, the conversations are happening, there's more representation, I think the scales will start to tip, but there's a lot of work to be done in the UAE, globally, wherever.
Yes, of course. It's not just a UAE issue. Yeah, correct.
Absolutely.
I think it's also for the community to feel confident to have these conversations. I mean, even me, I've learned to be more comfortable with this is who I am. And I think we have to talk about diversity. I used to be the quiet person in the background, like, I don't want my colleagues to feel uncomfortable. I don't want to be too loud about it. Obviously, and not aggressive, but at least just have open. And some people will fidget. Some people will feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But we need to talk about it.
Yeah, it's still sensitive. I mean, I was talking to a lawyer just 2 weeks ago we were talking about hair, black hair.
Yes.
It's always a conversation.
Yeah.
But she said to me, Thenji, I'm not confident yet to, wear braids yet. I'm not confident to, you can do it because you've made partner, but I'm not yet. Yeah. And I'm just like, well, are we still there where there's still sensitivities around how you wear your hair because you will be discriminated. I've been stopped before depending on my hairstyle. I have been profiled. And that's a story for a whole lot of Absolutely. Depending on, how I wear my hair. And I know that I get treated differently.
It's crazy.
In the UAE and outside of the UAE, so that's, a topic.
Yeah, it is.
A whole topic in
correct.
itself.
Yeah.
When it comes to, some of the issues that we face as people of color, even with clients, even when you're dealing with an individual. I remember many years ago, I remember walking into room and I'd spoken to the client and I think she thought my name was Angie, and I remember walking in and she was like, I'm waiting for the lawyer. I was like, let's
this is me, we've spoken.
We've spoken. So you have those, everyone has a story, right? We can all sit down around the table and have a story of what's happened, but I think the key is not to let that dissuade us or push us backward. It's really important to continue and open the doors for the youth.
Yeah, I think that's right. And even just, I think authenticity is something I've touched on, Let's Talk, before, because even me, like obviously I'm in a legal industry, you are the minority and that is how it is and hopefully it changes. But I think when you can just own that this is who I am, and yes, this week I have braids and maybe a month later I might not have braids, and just tomorrow. Tomorrow. Just be able to, also the questions will be there, as frustrating as they may be, but a lot of it's curiosity. A lot of people are just liking the new style, the diversity that you can bring with your hair, etc. But I remember, even getting braids, I think only just now I've started to kind of rock braids again. Wow. And I think if I really was to deep dive into it, I wore braids a lot as a young girl. I was bullied a lot because our family were the minority. We grew up in a very small village. So I'm probably thinking, I don't want to draw attention because my hair is in braids, which is so common now. Braids are not a new thing at all. No. But I think there was a lot of that, like, I just want to fit in. So I'm not going to wear braids because I don't want my colleagues asking me questions about braids. And I'm just like,
how are we still there? And it's true, perception, and especially when you're starting out in your career, perception does matter. So, you have to consider about when I walk into the room, do I want to cause any kind of necessary attention to myself?
Correct.
Maybe not, right?
Make myself and make others feel uncomfortable. I'm always aware of that as well.
Absolutely. And so I get it. I get the concerns. But, we strive for a time when we can be authentic completely within the workspace, with your clients, with your peers. And that's really where we want to be. And I think what a lot of people don't understand is people's experiences within the same work setting are different. Yeah. I remember working in a building and if I was walking with my colleagues, I would never get asked, where I'm going. And I'm talking about a building I worked for like many years.
What?
But if I was on my own, security would always ask, where are you going?
Really?
Yes. And when I had this conversation, we had a listening session. Yes. When I had this conversation in the office, they said, no, not in this building. That doesn't happen here, does it, Thenji? So yes, it does. But it doesn't happen to you. So, it's interesting to understand life from somebody else's.
I think it's
corner.
important. It's so important. I think without doing that and maybe saying things that I may find embarrassing, and I'm just going to brush off. I know why he keeps on asking me this, but my colleague might not get it and think I'm being dramatic. I think you have to lay it out there to say, actually, my experience in just coming into the building is different to yours. So people are mindful of that. Whether they want to receive it or not is another situation.
It's another thing. And I think the fact that companies now are embracing diversity is so important, because each person brings a richness to the workplace. And it's been proven that the more diverse an organization is, the more profitable.
Correct.
You know, when I deal with some of these race discrimination cases, for example, and I look and I see, you know, the defense or whatever, I'm just like, if they had a more diverse legal team, they would know not to say that, you know, because even if you had a paralegal of color who would say, actually, don't say that, this is not going to work in our favor. That's where the richness is. So or if you have a disabled person, you know, that actually this needs to be taken into account, because these are the day-to-day issues that I'm facing. That's where the richness is.
That's such a good example, actually, because, you come with your different experiences and how things can be interpreted. So I think that's so important. In my role, obviously, marketing communications, I'm big on diversity of thought. I think what I would think versus someone else that's had a different upbringing, different cultural experience can make such a big difference when we're working on content, campaigns, how we engage with different audiences, because obviously clients are so diverse in themselves. So I'm a big believer of that as well.
And it's interesting, clients themselves are demanding more diverse panels. I remember when we were going to pitch a couple of years ago in a law firm, we were going to pitch for a massive client. And it was, I think, 3 male senior lawyers who were going for this. And the client said, can you make sure that the lawyers who come onto this panel are diverse? And Thenji,
they actually asked.
Yeah.
Where's Thenji?
Thenji, do you want to join us? So, you know, clients are demanding that would be taken into consideration before they give you work. So, you know, now it's important to make sure that everyone in the organization is diverse, because it helps you put your best foot forward. I mean, I work with a paralegal. She speaks Urdu, and it was amazing when we went to do training. We were speaking to the more kind of junior staff at that session, and I said, does everyone speak Urdu? And they said yes. And I was like, well, there you go, take it away, speaking your language. And off she went. And you know, I'm like, you know exactly what to say in this. And I kind of sat down and Nubba ran the show. So, you know, there you go, a typical example of where you know, you can't know everything.
Correct.
And having a diverse team will always assist.
Fantastic. You've encouraged me so much as well. I think obviously staying within the legal industry, I think seeing profiles like yourself is very encouraging. And actually just genuinely being yourself, I think it's great. Considering the work that you're doing as well for individuals and corporates in the employment space, I know it's not an easy task. You must come across a lot. One question I had, because you're very successful, I think you're doing great things.
Thank you.
If somebody wanted to go into the field and, you know, become an employment lawyer, eventually become an employment partner, to work within a legal industry, how did you start off? What would be the advice that you would give?
Look, I think I chose employment law because it's so varied. So it's not an area of law where tomorrow I'm doing the same thing. Today I'm doing immigration. Tomorrow I'm dealing with discrimination. And next time I'm dealing with health and safety in the workplace. Then I'm dealing with mental. So you're dealing with a really wide range of topics. And it's dynamic. So 2-3 years ago, we were talking about COVID. Now we're talking about the impact of AI.
Could you imagine?
On the workplace, okay? So, you know, we're evolving.
Constantly.
We're constantly evolving. It's now about AI and ESG and all these topical, you know, areas. So it is really exciting, you know, to be in an area of law that evolves so quickly. And I think it's also important to look at the impact that you can make on kind of a macro scales.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know, I sit on the DIFC Employee Workplace Savings Scheme board in the DIFC. And, you know, that's an impact on compensation and benefits and, you know, how end of service gratuity is going. But then tomorrow I'm dealing with, on a very individual, personal level, that I've been terminated or haven't received my money. And the ability to, I mean, we've worked with some cases where someone has got no money and we're able to get them 9 months, 10 months compensation.
Oh, wow.
This is life-changing for some people. Or extend their visa for, you know, a couple of months and, you know, make sure that they get their flight ticket home.
Some security,
Some security. So the impact on a personal level is also, you know, a lot. So yes, I'm biased, but I really think it's one of those areas in law that you can make a meaningful change.
Yes, I agree.
And I love working in Dubai because we are now in the process of, you know, really changing the laws and development. New concepts like equal pay. So equal pay is there, you know. Men and women is the same compensation for work of equal value. It's in the law, right?
It's there?
It's there. It's there.
I have to read this law.
It's there, black and white.
Okay.
So, you know, whilst these were established principles in the UK many years ago, but even if you look at the UK, that principle was there in law, but the litigation came long time after. So that's where we are now. So it's now more of awareness, and now it's for employees to start cases, and then we see how the courts are going to deal with it for the precedent, right? So I think it's really an important area. It's evolving. It's going to change workplace culture. And I never just wanted to be an employment lawyer that just does contracts. I really want to be involved in making an impact.
Things that are making a difference.
Making an impact. That's where really the passion lies.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And just thank you for being so inspiring and passionate about what you do and supporting individuals. And I know you work with corporates as well, but it seems like, you know, you're very genuine in the advice that you give and how you can assist. So looking forward to seeing more of your profile and stalking you on LinkedIn. All the great stuff you're doing. Thank you. Let's talk DXB. Real conversations by real people.